Good. Thank you so much. Once again, good morning, everyone. Hope you're all excited, glued to your seats right now for the next 1 hour or so, right? We really want to unpack as much as possible when it comes to data strategy. Now, before I go into the individual speakers and load them with the questions that you may have to ask as well, right? Maybe you can also use the chat to kind of do a short review about yourself as well. How much do you think you understand about data? Or even better, how much of data is being used in your businesses today? So you just need to give me a number between 1 to 5, 5 being that you think you're very adept, you are using data in many parts of your business, you are aware of it, you are familiar with it, and 1 being, well, that's why you're here, right? So 1 being very new to data, 5 being very adept to data, right? Just put it very quickly within the chat so that all of us here, even on the panel as well, will be able to get a good sense of where everybody fits in, right? There are a lot of trees coming in, guys. Yeah, keep the numbers coming as I also invite our speakers, our panelists here this morning to also give a very quick, short introduction about themselves. Maybe we can start off with Darren.
Sure, thanks a lot, Chan. Again, morning everyone. My name is Darren Chong. I'm the Performance Marketing Analytics Lead here at ADA. And what I do is I help our clients and partners make the most return out of every dollar spent on marketing, right? So we do that through a process of analytics, experimentation, as well as optimization. Yeah.
Nice, thank you so much. We'll definitely dive into each and every one of those that you mentioned just now. Serm.
Hi, thank you, Jen. It's good to see you again. Hi,
yes,
everyone. I'm Serm, co-founder and CEO of Antsomi. Antsomi is a regional marketing technology company. We HQ in Singapore and we have offices in Malaysia, Vietnam, and also Indonesia. We build marketing technology software such as a customer data platform, of which we leverage on the technology to help clients to unify their customer data and importantly, to activate the customer data across multiple channels.
Nice. And I've been reading a little bit about your company that you also have certain case studies around the region. I think it will be very beneficial to today's audience as we come from different parts of Southeast Asia as well. Definitely. Gurun, can we hear from you too?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. My name is Gurun Dharan. You guys can call me Gurun. I'm a product manager at Shipper Indonesia. Currently, I'm handling logistic operations and communications product. One of my projects right now is improving our customer services using chatbot and customer engagement platform.
That's quite amazing. Thank you so much for the introduction, Gurun. Now, very interestingly, right, when you talk about data, I'm sure everybody has been listening to your introduction, and there's a lot of things being said, right, from CDP to chatbots, and then all of these things coming up. So, but from a business perspective, right, where should a company start? Do you think, Gurun, since we stopped at you, maybe you want to go first, right? Just to give a bit of insight on where should a company start when it comes to implementing a data tool or data strategy.
Sure. I think before jumping to any data solutions and technologies, I believe that a company need to start with the data mindset first, because it will be really ineffective and even useless in the long run if the company from top to the bottom don't have the same data mindsets when implementing the data solutions there.
The data mindset, right? You want to elaborate just a little bit more on what do you mean by data mindset? Like maybe give us one tip on how do
Sure. For example, the data mindset is, for example, the data always come first. I mean, you know, we get the decisions based on the data, and then we don't cherry picking the data. Only picking the data that support our idea, and then we need to focus more on what really matters. The data currently is overwhelming, too many data right now, and then the last one is learn to embrace the failures itself.
That's very, very true. And I know Darren with ADA also deals with a lot of data. I'm sure you resonate with having a data mindset as well. Why don't you also share with us from your perspective, how should company go about and start on this journey?
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with what Gurun said. I think culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So if you don't have the right kind of data culture in place, whatever you're trying to do with your kind of data transformation just won't really pan out. Artificial intelligence, big data, they're all really sexy kind of buzzwords. And the temptation is to kind of start there, right? Let's hire a very expensive team of data scientists Let's get them working on really fancy projects. But that may not necessarily be the best approach, for you to start on your journey. What I would say is, most organizations are sitting on kind of a treasure trove of first-party data, second-party data, and there's a lot of cool analytics you can do with data that you already have, right? So I'd say a natural starting point is, of course, the culture, as Gurun mentioned, but also just starting out, just having one or two analysts actually look into the data and build some simple proof of concept cases. It's not too difficult. You don't need a big bang. Anyone can get started.
Nice. And I know Serm and Antsomi, right? You all do quite a bit of the B2C side of things, right? Retail and all of that as well. Does that part of the industry differ when getting started? I mean, Gurun and Darren, right, talk about the culture, talk about the mindset, which are great. But if I'm a retail company, does that still apply, or is it literally I've got no choice? Data is a must-have for my business.
Definitely data is a must-have if you are talking about retail standpoint, because if you look at retail data, generally they have three types of data. First is customer data, secondly is product data, and thirdly is transactional data. And all these data are interlinked, right? But if you're looking at last 1.5 years, especially after COVID happens, right? Retail start to emerge into how to combine online and offline, how to move into e-commerce, and data suddenly becomes more important than ever for retailers. And that is the moment they start to think about, hey, how do I connect all these online and offline data together? And importantly, today, retail is dealing with many types of different customers, of which retail also have many different customer touch points with their customer. And how do you really connect all this data together and understanding the customer behavior and retarget them accordingly and send them a personalized message accordingly? That is definitely the core of the retail business from a data standpoint.
Nice. We will definitely want to dive a lot deeper into that, especially. But something caught my attention just now. Darren, you talk about how the data industry right now has a lot of jargons being thrown around, right? And I totally agree. For some of you that I'm sure you've heard of these terms before, right? From big data to CDP lah, visualizations lah, AI lah, BI lah, governance lah, AI ops lah, and so many more, and there'll be more to come, right? How does one, from a business perspective, differentiate between what is a hype, what is literally something that I don't need, versus something that is essential to a business? In other words, from a business perspective, I'm going to spend this amount of money, will it end up becoming like a white elephant project, 3-5 years down the line?
Yeah.
What do you think, Darren?
I'm sorry, you mentioned me, right?
Yes.
Right, yeah. I think, there is a lot of hype around big data and AI and all these sexy jargon. But, I would ask myself first, would that organization benefit, from really using data? I would say that, not all organizations will benefit from using artificial intelligence, but almost all organizations will benefit from having some form of analytics in place, right? I'll give an example, kind of maybe as you mentioned about barbers, earlier today. Talk about hairdressers. Your hairstyle is really unique, right? You have very specific preferences. You only want your hair cut a certain way at a certain time, in a certain direction. And that's something that, a barber might not be able to use AI to do, right? Of course, we're trying and we're trying to build products around this, but in essence, because it's so customized, you can't really use AI for such a purpose, right? However, the same barber could look into their sales data and understand that most sales tend to happen on Friday. And so I should probably hire more staff in just for that short period of time. And I can have less staff on, any other hour of maybe a Sunday or a Monday, right? So, not all organizations will benefit from deep learning, artificial intelligence, but almost all will benefit from just at least looking at their data and drawing some insights from it.
All right. I mean, this sounds very much a little bit like some sort of a multi-channel, omni-channel kind of thing, right? So within this mix of, or this flurry of data sources, how would you then advise businesses to start looking? Is sales the easiest barrier of entry? What are the requirements to decide that, hey, this is what I need right now, and I should just start working on this portion of my business first?
I think it really depends. Sales is naturally one of the starting points, just because you would almost always have sales data, right? You have a point of sale system. You might do online transactions on, marketplaces like Lazada or Shopee. And with that, you have lots of robust data on sales, who purchased what, how many of each stuff, was ordered, what products are bought together. The availability of data just makes it a very attractive starting point and a very easy one for us to understand and work with.
Okay. I mean, Serm, you work a lot just now. You mentioned about retail and you talk about how important it is for retail to also jump on this, right? Again, how from a retail perspective or even from experience that businesses also know that this is the right source to work with? How do you define right source over here?
Good question, Jen. I think especially for last 1.5 years when businesses all go into digital, right? Whether it's e-commerce, set up website and marketplace and wheresoever, try their means to sell their products. It's really important that businesses nowadays collect data everywhere, right? Whether it's website, mobile apps, CRM, e-commerce website, social, POS, like what mentioned just now, etc. Right? And you can collect as much data as possible, right? You can have tons of data, but importantly, you need to know, are these data usable, right? Are these data usable? For example, if you know this data is Serm, is this usable? You just know this is Serm, right? And it's not usable. And the next thing is you need to know my mobile number and my email address, right? Because with that data, immediately you know how to reach Serm, right? That is not only usable, but actionable. So I think importantly, when you collect data, you really need to make sure it's usable and actionable, or else it's garbage in, garbage out. You will collect a lot of not usable data, and at the end of the day, you will end up nowhere.
Nice. I like how you put actionable and usable, right? Because I think a lot of times, even us as businesses, sometimes we run campaigns, we just try collect. At the end, at the year of the campaign, we have like 1,000, 10,000, so-called data, and then we look at it and so what can we really do about this, right? But talking about the amount of data, I'm sure Gurun, through Shipper itself, you collect tons of data, right? You deal with logistics. So definitely you cannot fall into the category of garbage in, garbage out. That would be a huge disaster to the business. So maybe you can give us some insights, right, on the ground. How do you actually turn this data into actually tangible business actions? How do you make it useful, like what Serm has been saying?
Okay. I think with the unlimited data like oceans right now, it will be really easy for us to be lost and overwhelmed. Yeah. So that what we really need to do is paying attention more or focus more on what really matters and starting small from there. For example, when I built the chatbot, I used the historical data first to get the most frequently asked questions. And just like Pareto rules, I put my priority more on 20% of the questions, which dominate the 80% of overall inquiries. After that, I start deploying the solutions on bi-weekly basis, sprint, and then try to gather the feedback from internal employees and also customer every time we deploy the new apps. But if we really need more, further analysis, I think we also continue with conducting the qualitative data gathering, such as user interview and also group discussions. I think, what we really need to do is focus more on what really matters.
So would you say then, is it more important to focus on the technical solution to it? Like in your case, you mentioned chatbot, or is it more important to first look at, hey, what do we need as a business right now? Is customer service really that focus that we need to look at? Or is it maybe in your case, the trackability of things? Or is it maybe the order placing kind of things? How do you actually look at data and say, okay, let's start with customer service because that seems to be the need?
Okay, for me actually, when we also having the data mindsets, we also need to be comfortable with the data. There is an old proverb from Indonesia, tak kenal maka tak sayang, or if you do not know it, then you will not love it. I mean, for a company, I think it really should start with the understanding the business metric that really need for further actions. For example, for the most of the startups starting with the users business metric, calculate how many users that come to the apps and then adopt the features and then trying to do the navigations on the apps, and then doing the transactions, and then how many users that churn. Then, after that, we can start to another area of the business, for example, on the logistics side. So we also not only tracking our sales, but also tracking our operational, and then how many that, delivery we also sending on within the SLA or overdue from the SLA, and then how many customers, customer complaints from them. And then, what I really wanted to say that we really need to start with define what or which business that we really need to improve first, and then we can move to, another phase of the data driven, which is that, using the historical data to extract some analysis and extract the insight, and then moving to another or the final phase of the data driven, so predict patterns, relations, and also churn for the features.
Okay, so what you're saying is also that as a business, even though I have that breadth of data, I should actually just focus one area at a time and not just dive into trying to utilize A to Z, right? Is to do it in phases, by business use cases, by business problems I'm trying to address, right? Cool. Now I'm going to take a question from the Q&A. I think this is an open question to all three of you. So whoever that wants to go, you can go. It's from Brian, right? So the question says, regarding data and insight, how to solve the lack of trust in data imbalance of data literacy and lack of data analysis. A lot of big words over here, right, panelists? You can look at it at the Q&A, right? Regarding data insight, how can we solve the lack of trust in data imbalance of data literacy and lack of data analysis? Who would like to take this question?
I'm happy to kind of take that on board, actually.
Sure, Darren, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's quite a kind of loaded question, isn't it? We're talking about a few different concepts here: trust in data, kind of imbalance of data literacy, as well as kind of lack of data analysis. I would argue that all three things can be kind of addressed through education, right? So we often don't trust things that we don't know, and data is not a mystical tool; it's not a magical thing. It's just information, right? And the more that we use data and apply them to our business problems, the more we realize it's just a method of logical thinking, coming to conclusions, and then taking action on those conclusions. Likewise, with data literacy, again, education is really something that would, help us speak the common language, right? And again, lack of data analysis is often because we just don't understand how data can be used. So I would say that, kind of all three of these areas are kind of addressed through education. And, it's becoming, education is really easy to access nowadays. There are so many available courses, on MOOCs and places like Coursera, LinkedIn, as well as through kind of panel discussions such as this one. Very easily available information that we can all access.
Nice, that's a good one. Thanks, Darren. Serm and Gurun, do you have anything to add to this?
No.
All right. I mean, since I kind of called you out, right, Serm, just now. So maybe let's come back to the retail side of this. So Gurun shared a lot of insights within the logistics of what shipper does, right? So on the retail side then, are there different data needs then compared between retail and non-retail businesses? How do customers navigate this side of things? I mean, after collecting data, it just ends there. So what should they do? How should they do it? Are there any difference?
Okay. Of course, just now we talk about retail care about three types of data, right? Customer data, product data, and transactional data. Let me share one case study we have with supermarket clients in Philippines, right? They actually have tons of data because they have an offline membership, right? Those kind of shopping cart. When you buy something, then you show your card. And then from the POS standpoint, they start to collect a lot of data, right? They know what Jane has bought, what Serm has bought in a specific supermarket located in a specific location. So they put all this data into a data warehouse, and then after that, they don't know how to move forward, right? So take a step back of what we are talking about. Hey, how to make the data to be usable and actionable. That is where we come in to help in terms of, first, we take all this data, including other data set they have, and start to unify all this data, because all these data are from many, many different sources. The moment we start to unify the data, we understand the data, we analyze the data, that is the moment we start to segmentize, or so to speak, categorize the customer data. When we categorize the customer data, we start to have persona and we understand what kind of customer like to buy what kind of product. That is the moment we can start to help them to build the customer journey for all these different customers individually, whether it's from individual standpoint or from a segment standpoint. And at the end of the day, how do we make it to be actionable is we map the customer journey to the activation channel that they prefer, right? Whether some prefer to be contactable through Viber message in Philippines, or Jane prefer to be contactable through emails. And that is the activation kick in, right? When we talk about actionable data, understanding the data, segmentate the data, and then make the data to be actionable. And then we activate the data and send the personalized message to the individual customer and remind them, hey, you know what? Last month you bought product A and B. I think it's already finished. Why not I give you a 10% coupon and now you can go to purchase again. That is how today retail use data, particularly connecting the online and offline touch point to have the full understanding of their consumer behavior and deliver a hyper-personalized message to the customer.
Well, I really like that case study, Serm, because I don't know whether you realize or not, in the case study that you explained, you combine the different technicalities of data collection and all that into something that's a lot more tangible, like customer journey, right? I think from marketing, from a business perspective, a lot of times we just so-called just simply shoot, right? Just around it, they say, oh, we think the customer like this, we think we should do this. Oh, because we have this product, we should sell this, but we do it without basis. So what you're saying is that with the data collected, put it onto the customer journey. From there, you then map out what are the next steps to take. Wow, amazing. Darren, I mean, ADA works with companies around the region, right? And of course, some spoke from a retail perspective, but from your observation, is there a difference between the data needs in a local setting versus a company that has a regional play? Simply because our audience here come from different countries, right? So does company size or revenue or channels make a difference, or is there any difference at all?
That's kind of a fantastic question, actually. Here in ADA, we operate in 10 markets across South and Southeast Asia, and there is absolutely a difference between a local and in a regional play. And I think this kind of relates a little bit to the question that was asked earlier. One of the major differences that I see is kind of two things, right? One is data literacy, and the other is kind of the existing tools and technology that they're using, right? So in more developed markets, in the more developed regional markets, what we see is that they have much higher levels of data literacy, right? So when you're working with clients in that region, you're not spending a lot of time focused on education. You're more kind of spending a lot of time on insight generation, as well as translating those insights quickly to action, right? So if I find that this particular creative works well, if I find that this particular audience resonates, it's really quick for us to turn that into business dollars for the organization. Now, in contrast, in some of the kind of less digitally mature markets, we spend a lot of time focused on kind of data storytelling, communication, as well as trying to understand how data can be leveraged in those situations to help the organizations, right? Pros and cons to both. In the more mature markets, you're working in kind of existing technology stacks. And the focus there is very much on how do you connect all these disparate data sets together to kind of get something meaningful. With the less mature or kind of slightly less digitally mature regions, the focus is really less on kind of integrations and more on, you have a clean slate. If you could, introduce any tools or technology, what would you introduce to kind of generate value? So pros and cons to both, but very enjoyable engagements in all regions.
Nice. I mean, looking from a regional play, thank you for bringing out all some of these differences over there. But when it comes to, let's say, things like audience targeting, right? So on the actionable side, with all this data in place, when it comes to audience targeting, how does it play out with all these privacy topics that is coming up right now, right? I mean, we've got iOS 14, which is a question that Karen is asking as well. Karen is also asking what would be the future of audience targeting, looking at how different platforms and government are trying to have their own laws surrounding it, and since there are so many markets that you're operating, how is there any prediction towards these things? And maybe even how can companies navigate around some of these regulations that's being put out?
I think there's a few parts to that question, right? So what's the future of audience targeting? I agree with my fellow panelists here. I think audience targeting, the future of it is kind of mass personalization, right? Where you find the right person, you send them the right product at the right time, at the right place. Now, with that comes privacy concerns, right? How is my data being used, and am I protected while I'm on the internet space? We operate across 10 markets, and we kind of follow. We look to local laws as to how strict our data privacy and data governance needs to be. But you'll find that there's a lot of insights you can generate using what we call non-PII data, right? So PII stands for personable, identifiable information, right? So that's kind of data that allows me to say, hey, you're a Jan, you live in X. We don't have any of that, right? We don't have any personal data about you. However, we still can do targeting, on you as an individual, based on your preferences, based on your interests, and based on your behavior online, right? So that's kind of how we address two things. We are able to do mass personalization while still protecting the privacy of our audiences that we engage, right?
Nice. Serm, maybe you want to add on to that, right? Because you are working directly on this mass personalization aspect for some of your clients as well. Maybe you can also share a little bit on what do you think the future is, and also how can a company navigate around some of these privacy concerns and regulations?
I mean, these challenges started when we talk about the third-party cookies or third-party data is soon to be gone, right? We still have it for 1.5 years to be used, particularly for so many years. All the brands are already getting used to layer the third-party data to improve their data set when they do targetings, right? So today, when I speak to my clients or any brands, I really urge them to start doing one very important thing. Start to formulate your first-party strategy, right? When third-party data cookie is gone, you are just having your first-party data, right? But don't wait until 1.5 years later and do it. Start from now, right? So that's fundamental strategy for all the brands and clients today, that you need to start from that standpoint, cultivate the data, grow the data until the time comes. At least you already have a set of data for you to use, and those data are very meaningful and actionable for you.
That's a very good point, right, Serm? And I think this relates to one of the questions from the audience by Sue. And I think it's targeted to you. She's asking, how can we analyze and segment the data collected to map out the entire customer journey and personalize messages like what you've just mentioned? So I guess she wants to know the know-how.
Okay, very good question. That's typically what my client is really thinking and doing, right? That today, you collect so much data, and data are all siloed. It could be your website is managed by Google Analytics, your mobile app is by Firebase, and you have social channel, and all these data are siloed. So the next step is you need to use technology like CDP to connect all this data, whether it's online or offline. If it's offline, it could be a cloud-based POS. And when you collect all this data and unify this data, that is the moment you can start to understand the customer and map up the customer journey individually. But individual is not enough. You could be dealing with hundred of thousand customers every day, right? You need to understand them from a segment standpoint, that by grouping of behavior, then you understand the segment of particular segment and persona. And from that standpoint, that is the moment you need to start plan how do you reach out to the customer and deliver the personalized message via the personal channel that they want or they prefer to have. It is a long process and journey that I urge every brand start to do it from today. Yeah. Good question. Thank you.
That's also a very good advice. Don't wait until everything is retracted and then you're left scrambling in the dark. Start building your first-party data strategy from now onwards. That's awesome. Gurun, you also talk about the shipper using quite a number of data, right? Collecting at different data points, and that's particularly on the chatbot aspect of things, right? So maybe you can also share with us from a business perspective, the collection of data or the use of data actually change over the years for your company itself, and because you also mentioned just now of how a company should identify different parts of the use cases and progress from stage by stage, how do you know when are you done with that stage? Because I think to some of us here, data seems to be like a never-ending journey, right? It's a customer journey. You keep optimizing, you keep changing, you keep upgrading. But when do you know that, okay, I'm done here, let me move on to a separate part, a second part of the business?
Okay, great questions. Actually, I see that many changes on the last 5 years here in Indonesia. And then, for example, that 5 years ago that we starting, gathering the data or collect the data using the manual questionnaire. We send the questionnaire directly to our users, and then our users, input the answers there. But after that, for like a year, and then we find out that many users sometimes really doesn't know that what they really want, and then what the real answers. And then we're trying to, improve our data collections. We build IoT tools that gather the data directly from our, machines or our truck, our box directly. And then after that, we also focus more on our mobile apps. Currently with this disruptions of startup company, I think the data collections also changes. Then we used to gather the data using the questionnaire, but now the popular way to gather the data is using the customer experience tracker, for example, Mixpanel, more engaged, something like that. And then, it's more honest. The data is more honest because we can see that, the navigation of the users on the apps, where they, drop on the transactions, why they charge, something like that. And then, yeah, the data is more honest. And then when you ask me about when we really need to stop, and when we don't find any more value on the data collections, and then we see that, okay, this kind of data collection is not really scalable, I think we need to move to the next steps that more scalable. For example, using customer experience tracker is more scalable rather than using the questionnaires. And then, yeah, it's more honest.
Okay, so when you talk about questionnaires, or even you talk about the customer experience tracker and all that, are you referring to like a tool that's available, or something that you built yourself, or it's something where businesses need to somehow just scramble and create their own questionnaire? Is there anything ready out there that people can tap into?
Yeah, I think we can build it by ourselves, but currently there are many solutions out there. For example, we're having Google Event, and then we also have tools like Mixpanel, more engaged, that tracking our customers' activity on the apps. I mean, everyone or every business can install the apps using the solutions without developing anything.
Okay, and I think this question would relate very much to what you've just said, that came from the audience, right? From Tati Razak. The question goes, how long does a business actually keep a data set before action is taken? I think this can be answered by both Darren and Serm as well. So in other words, if I'm building this data set, I have it, how long should it be kept before action is taken? Is there like a duration to it? Is there a recommendation? What are your thoughts, Gurun?
I think as long as the data is already giving us the value, yeah, we can just taking the actions directly. I mean, there is no use to keep the data for a long time. I mean, the use of the data is that we need to really getting the actions directly after the data is taken, without but first that we really need to check if our data is already correct. I mean, sometimes data collection is we collect many null information, many false informations, many noises, many false informations there. So that we really need to do some cleaning first before analyze it, and then visualizing it, and then trying to get the actions from there. But yeah, as soon as you can get the information from there, you need to get the actions directly.
Nice. So if there's no value, no point keeping it long. If there's value, use it immediately, right? That's what you're saying. Thank you so much, Gurun. Darren, do you have anything to add to that? Like, is there value in just holding on to the data over a period of time?
That's a good question, actually. And I tend to agree with Gurun here. If for most scenarios, the sooner you use your data that's valuable, the better. But of course, that doesn't mean that I will throw out any old data that's lying around, right? I can give you a good example, of maybe one of the products that we have here in ADA, right? So we have what we call the telco churn model. So it's a data science model that helps us understand if you're about to leave your current telco carrier, right? So if I'm current Maxis user, am I about to leave the Celcom? Now, there's value in that prediction because if I know you're about to leave your current carrier, I could send you an offer, right? I could say, hey, why don't you join Celcom? I'll give you a free bundle, right? But if you hold on to that and if you don't take action on that, by next month, they would already be on that new carrier. You've missed the opportunity, right? Of course, not all data is that time sensitive, right? Not all actions must be taken immediately, right? There are lots of data, transaction data, customer data, product data that can yield value to you in the much longer term, right? So again, fully agree with my panel, fellow panelists here. I would hold on to data. I wouldn't throw it away. But from quite a lot of applications, it's quite time sensitive, and I would use them at the soonest opportunity.
That's a good one. Let's just clarify that a little bit, right? So you spoke about how there are different types of data, and it's not just customer data alone. There's transaction data, there's behavioral data, there's a lot of even predictive kind of data, right? Which kind of relates to what Mike is asking within the Q&A right now. He's actually asking, just from the perspective of customer data alone, is there like a recommendation on how frequent should it be updated? Is there something like that?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of a yardstick measure on hey, you need to update every week. Of course, in the ideal world, I would have the most up-to-date information about every customer in my database. However, in practicality and in practical terms, you may not have that luxury. So work with what you have, but of course, the more frequent, the better.
Yeah, I think it's also come down to how you segregate it to different data types, right? I mean, for transaction data, for behavioral data, you want it to be as frequent as possible. Real time is possible. I'm always actively collecting it. But for customer type data that may not change, I mean, who changes their handphone number every other day or where they stay every other week or every other month, right? So I think we also need to kind of look at data in different categories to say, okay, this needs to be live, this needs to be updated when, maybe customer once every year, I don't know, once every 2 years. I think that would address that kind of a question as well. Now let's come back to data strategy, right? Assuming that we want to go and today get started on data-driven strategy, is there anything at all that I need to have as a business? So this it could be a requirement. It could be a certain checklist I need to have. There's certain resources. I need specific talent. I need specific skill sets. Maybe start with you, right, Darren? We'll go through everyone. So we'll start with Darren. Is there something like that?
Again, that's a good question. At the onset of COVID, everyone's trying to go through their kind of digital transformation, right? If you look it up, there are many frameworks out there that prescribe all kinds of things that you need to have to start this journey. They would talk about talent, technology, senior leadership, culture, and depending on which framework you look at, they can prioritize different things. But I kind of throw back to one of the first things we talked about today, and I think the most important thing that you need to have is the right mindset and the right culture, right? Again, culture eats strategy for breakfast. We've seen that time and time again. If you don't have the right kind of data culture in place, it's highly unlikely that you'll be able to use data effectively, right? And kind of teasing that out, what does it mean to have a kind of data culture? It means that you're kind of open to experimentation, right? Can we try and use this data to solve a business problem? If it doesn't work, fine. Can we find something else that we can do with that data? Right? So it's that flexibility, that agility, and that open-mindedness to try something new with data that you kind of have. Right. So, again, many things that you could have and you could say you need. But to be honest, if I boil it down and based on many of the engagements that I've been on, I think it's always culture.
Culture, right. Looks like that's the theme for today. Serm, what about you? How would I get started?
I have a very simple framework for everyone to remember. 4 keywords here for you to remember. People,
Awesome.
Business, data, and technology. Right, people, as what Gurun and Darren has mentioned, is a mindset. Mindset is very important. Mindset actually is your people. It's how you get your internal people to have buy-in and to understand and to be aware of data-driven strategy and data-driven related initiatives are important to the company, right? That is first. Secondly, business. What is your business objective when you want to use data? When you want to build a data-driven initiative? That business strategy objective is really important to be defined. Thirdly, data. What is the data you want to collect in order to achieve that goal, in order to achieve that objective? What kind of usable data, actionable data you want to collect? That is important. And last but not least is technology, right? When you already have people to have buy-ins, have data to be in place, and it's very clear about the business objective, what technology you want to use to deliver the result, and what technology vendor you want to engage to help you to go along the journey. And these four elements are working hand in hand, and it's very important to remember all these: people, business, data, and technology.
Very, very clear and concise. You see me busy writing down, taking notes as well. I hope you are also writing down. Oh, I see the admin Exabytes also posted it within the chat. That's awesome. Gurun, from your perspective as well, maybe you can also share again, you know, how would somebody get started? Maybe even from a team perspective, right? What would be maybe the one or two things that a team should look at when it comes to forming a strategy like that?
I think Serm already elaborated perfectly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we really need to start with the mindsets, even inside of the team itself. I mean, not only one person cannot really push the data driven into the company. It really needs to start from the top to the bottom itself, and then for the team itself, I think we really need to like I said before, that we really need to comfortable with the data. We really need to understand which part of the business area that we really need to improve, and then in the end, that we really need to equip ourselves and our company with practical skills and also the technology, because theoretical only is not really enough with current conditions.
Speaking about practicality, right? ROI is very practical. I think every time when you talk about data, some companies say, so I invest all this money, right? People, business, data, tech, awesome. So how much will I make back in the next 1 month? How do you address ROI, Gurun? I mean, like a company for shipper, how do you measure ROI when it comes to data?
Yeah, it is easy actually, because the data solutions and technology will impact overall business area. We shall compare the investment versus tangible results on, for example, increment on our monthly active users, our sales, our revenue, and then decrement on our user churn or operational cost itself. Even we can also compare it with the faster decisions taken because of the help on the data itself.
So in other words, you actually look at the speed side of things, you actually look at the delivery side of things as well, and then put a number to that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Serm, from a retail perspective, is there any difference to these two numbers that Gurun has mentioned, or are there even more to consider as what as ROI?
I think the ROI from retail perspective is definitely important, right? Because the example I've shared in terms of the Philippines one, the data is like oceans, right? So the challenge they face before they use CDP to solve their problems is that where is the ROI of the data warehouse, right? And ultimately, when the CDP put in place to make the data to be usable and actionable, that is the moment they realize, hey, the ROI of my data warehouse now finally turn out to be something meaningful to the business. So I guess all these things have to be connected, and ultimately your data definitely will give you the necessary ROI. It's just how you plug in all this important technology then and make it happen for you.
Nice, but how do you showcase this this outcome, right? Because from a company perspective, sometimes they're very reluctant to even invest in the first place. So it's very difficult to convince, let's say, the boss, the CEO or CMO to allocate this budget that seemingly looks like it's pouring into ocean. I can use that to buy more ads. I can use that to engage some influencers or to scale something. But how do you create this measurable component to convince the team or the management to invest in data?
I think very important that in some cases, especially for big clients, when we deal with them, we actually work with them for some sort of POC concept, right? So when we talk about going through all this sales pitch or whatsoever, until the sky fall or whatsoever. They were like, oh, okay, so what, right? So it's very important for that 1 to 3 months kind of POC. We put a really testing environment and let them understand that, hey, this is how things work. This is how we can make your data to be usable, to be actionable, and to be the core engine to build your data-driven initiative. Once they see the outcome from the POS, that is the moment they realize, hey, you know what? This is an investment I have to put in for next at least 1 to 3 years. I think to put all these things in front of them and make it happen for them is very important, especially from client's perspective.
Nice. Do you face that as well in ADA, Darren? I mean, developing this POC or even helping your clients to discover this ROI. How is it like over there?
Yeah, for sure. I kind of resonate with a lot of what my fellow panelists are saying. ROI from analytics projects materialize in the very long-term horizon, and they can manifest in many ways. Speed, as Gurun mentioned, is one of them. But we're not often sitting there with a stopwatch thinking of, how fast people work, So it's one of those benefits that while we obviously benefit from it, we may not measure it, and it may not be kind of a number that we have in our mind, right? And so a very good way to kind of prove value, if there is value, is through the concept of a proof of concept, POC, right? And we do that a lot with our clients. We take a little bit of data, we start small, right? We define a small scope. Let's see what data can do for you, right? And what's very important in this process is defining key metrics and evaluating them objectively, right? Again, things like speed, you can measure them, but only by doing so will you know if this was really a beneficial project to do, or if it was just another white elephant, right? So fully agree if my fellow panelists, POCs are really one of the best ways to get buy-in. Start small. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, let's try again.
Very nice, very nice. I mean, you mentioned something over there as well when you talk about going into the POC and then seeing whether it works for you to verify how accurate is that, right? How would a business actually know if it's accurate or whether the data that I have actually is able to lead to this result? Is it the data misleading me? Are there ways to kind of clean the data or to validate the data so that my POC would be a successful one?
I think it all comes down to measurement, right? Here in ADA, what we like to do is we like to benchmark things, just so that we have a fair and objective view if our data was truly impacting positively on business outcomes, right? So in the context of, say, for example, digital marketing and audience segmentation, you may want to benchmark your new solution with be it your CDP, be it your bespoke audience segments. You want to benchmark that against what we call native audiences, right? Those from Facebook naturally, or something you would have done if it was business as usual, right? So it's very fair, objective. There can be no fancy data storytelling to spin this story. It's this number versus this number. What's worked out, what hasn't worked out.
Nice. And maybe since you are still on this particular topic, are there any tools you would actually recommend to some of these businesses? I mean, free ones would be great, perhaps, whether it's for data consolidation or even for visualization perspective. Are there any ones that you would recommend?
Well, that's quite a tough question because so I come from a technical background. There are many open source programming tools. Python obviously is a free language. If it comes to data visualization, Power BI, Google Data Studio, these are all kind of free solutions. But above and beyond the tool, what I would say is that you can do even the most robust analytics most of the time. You can do them even on Excel, right? So I wouldn't say the starting point for analytics is a tool. You don't have to pay for anything to get started. I would say that it's about, again, it's about a mindset. If you had the right data on an Excel file, you could analyze it, come to a conclusion, and do something about it, right? So many tools out there, don't have to pay to kind of get started. But that's just kind of my perspective on it.
Cool, nice. How about Serm, right? You spoke a lot about omni-channel. I think a lot of us today can't help it but to be exposed to so many of these channels as well. Are there any tools that can help achieve that or even consolidate? Because it's quite cumbersome, right? If you think about it, you open Facebook Insights and then you go into it, you download the CSV file, then you open up Google Analytics, you export something again, then you probably go to your e-commerce and then you download something again. Very cumbersome process. Is there something that simplifies this even?
That is what we call customer data platform, in short, CDP today, right? That aggregate all the data into a single platform and to make it to be actionable and meaningful. Importantly, most of the CDP also have insights and report, of which you can create a single dashboard on top of the CDP. But too bad, CDP are mostly built for businesses and enterprise. You can't find any free CDP out there. It is all commercial way. But definitely, CDP is ultimate tool to help all these retail and businesses to get into a data-driven business.
Nice. I'm going to pick your brain a little bit more here, but what if I'm really not that enterprise, you know, and budget is a concern, but I really want to get started. I mean, I'm so inspired by three of you. I want to get started, but hey, I have to be an enterprise. I know what can I do to somewhat achieve that same result?
Okay, good question, James. This is what I always speak to my contact or clients, what we call digital maturity, right? How mature your organization is in terms of being digital, right? So at some point when you have a lot of data, I wouldn't say immediately you need to jump into a CDP. You need to reach certain level of digital maturity, then you think about CDP. Even sometimes I was approached by a lot of clients. They are telling me about the infrastructure of, hey, I just started my website. I said, fine, please use Google Analytics. It's a very good tool to help you to start with, right? And you don't need CDP to analyze while your data is small, right? So and then you tell me, hey, you know what, Serm, my monthly visitor is only 1,000 people. I was like, okay, you don't need CDP. Google Analytics is fine with you, and at the same time, you need to spend some money to grow your traffic, whether it's digital marketing or whatnot, which is a separate topic today, right? So today, I urge all the businesses to evaluate your digital maturity, and based on the digital maturity, then you start to plug in the relevant technology, and a lot of those technology could be free and available for you to start off with, and the investment is really low. You just need to learn how to use it. Until you reach certain level of maturity, that is the moment you need to start to think about how to implement a more advanced solution like the CDP.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Gurun, now there is a mix between the maturity and the tools out there, right? In your opinion, are they equal, or is it one more important than the other? And of course, if you have some tools to share, please feel free to share the audience too.
Okay, sure. Actually, for the last 6 months, I helped my wife building her own, micro businesses here. We start from the Instagram, and then what we really started, we really trying to gather our, requirement from our customers using the Google form. I mean, it is one of the easy tools that you can get, free tools from Google that, for gathering the, customers requirement there. And then we start to develop our own websites where, like Serm said, that we put our Google Analytic there so that we can see that the users behavior there. And then just like Darren said, and Excel is one of the biggest tools on the data analytics. I mean, we can do everything in there. And then if you say that, okay, I think we really need to start to do it more professionally, you can move to more, to the SQL and then also to the Python. So I believe that what we really need here is on the mindsets. I mean, the tools is every day, there is everywhere. Tools is also free. Many tools is free. I mean, for the starter kit for the new business, I think, yeah, let's start small and then move the business first before moving to more advanced analytic tools.
Awesome. I mean, I was intending to go one round and see if any last word of advice, right? But from your last answers from all three of you, already sounds like a very good closing statement. And because we have also officially ran out of time, I would just like to conclude by just really stealing what Serm said, right? I think the four elements that he shared basically sum up most of the things that we talk about today. People, business, data, and tech. People spoke about the maturity, spoke about the mindset, the culture that's so important within a company before even embarking on data strategy. The business aspect, also very important. Have a very clear goal, that you know your objectives. Make sure that the things that you do are somehow quantifiable, right? Don't just go into it because people are talking about it, but you know that your business can benefit from it. The data aspect, I love the word here. You talk about actionable, it has to be usable. If it's not of value, like Gurun said, right? If not of value, why are you keeping it? If it's of value, find ways to make use of it. But that does not mean that you're going to purge it, like Darren said. It could also be used for prediction and to forecast other aspects of the business. But most importantly, you need to take action on it. And last but not least, technology. Yes, there are a lot of tools out there, free, not free, but ultimately you want to find the ones that is able to deliver the results that you have. So I think we can also say that why Teck is at the end, this is my input to it, is that you first need to have the first three components in place. Without the right people, the clarity of the business, and what you want to do with data, whatever technology you're going to use, if you're not clear, it's going to fail. But with that clarity, you will find the right vendor, the right partner, the right tool to work with, and you'll be able to embark on this data strategy journey of yours. Thank you so much for tuning in to all of us. Thank you to our panelists, Darren, Gurun, and Serm as well. Huge honor being on the same panel as you. I hope everybody is tuning in, have been very, very much benefited from this particular session. Stay in touch with all of us. I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank you so much, Jan. And to everyone who's watching right now, that was our first panel discussion. I thought it was absolutely wonderful, Jan, as usual. Job well done. And to everyone else, Darren, Serm, Gurun, I absolutely adore each and every single one of you. I thought there was just so much deep, meaningful insight that you brought to the table today here at Marketing Fest Asia 2021. Everyone, to show your appreciation, let's give them a big virtual round of applause. I will see the four of you hopefully very soon for our next biannual meeting. But till then, feel free to stay on with us today and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.
Exabytes. Grow your business online.